Hey guys, AJ here just with another quick video for you. So I know that this whole Andrew Tate social media ban, it's been going on for a little while now, and they're still having the discussions. But I've noticed in my immediate circle at the gym and other places where I talk to a lot of people, especially young guys, and try and give them advice. People are asking like, why did the Andrew Tate ban happen and what's going on and whatever. So I'm just gonna go on a quick rant and drop a little bit of knowledge and some history because a lot of the younger guys, especially, don't really have a historical perspective and don't really know how it came to this. So basically, men need strong masculine figures. They just do. All of us do. Boys, even as we grow into adulthood, middle age, we still need men to look up to. There's men who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s who still watch old John Wayne movies or old, movies from the 80s and the 90s to kind of get an idea of what would a real man do in this situation. So there's always a need at every point in a man's life to have a strong type of masculine frame to emulate. And media has basically just shit all over that type of image over the last 40 years. And what these people who are trying to get rid of these figures is that men are going to get what we need. So people wonder where Andrew Tate and Kevin Samuels came from. The internet's a big place, and boys and men are going to get access to this type of information and these figures, and there's really nothing that anyone can do about it. So let's kind of get started from where it all started. So back in the day, you had the strong father image on TV. So we're talking about the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, right? So you had like Beaver Cleaver and his dad. And Beaver Cleaver, for those who were kind of young, was this really popular show with this young kid named Beaver and his brother and their dad and their mom. And they lived the basic like white suburban lifestyle. And Beaver would go through his little trials and tribulations and going to school and getting bullied. And then all the time his dad would teach him a lesson, and he would have this strong, well, Beaver, you have to understand, and you'd learn something from the show. And then you'd have like people like James from Good Times. He was the father figure of the family. This was a black sitcom in the 60s. And he would help the family solve problems and all this stuff, and he wasn't some bumbling idiot like you see in a lot of these shows today. So a lot of young black men of this generation, black men and white men, had these figures to look up to. Then what happened, you might ask? Well, we started having Gloria Steinem and her little feminist buddies, coming out and saying, hey, look, we're all oppressed and men are bad and etc. So all of a sudden, all of the traits that made men basically build the society we're in, that sent people to the moon, that, that eradicated polio, that made planes and trains and automobiles, was toxic. And the craziest part about this whole thing, and I'm going to make a whole other video about this, is all these chicks were all married or had men in their lives. Whereas these modern feminists now, they're too stupid to even try and get stuff out of men and get married. But that's a whole other point. That's just a kind of side rant. But so this is the 60s and the 70s. All these women going, oh, we're so hurt and we're oppressed, blah blah blah. After that, we get to the 80s. In the 80s, we have Donahue and we had Oprah. Basically, this is when daytime TV started. And in daytime TV we had the Oprah Winfrey Show, and then we had Donahue. And if you're young, if you were born in the 90s or the 2000s and you know Oprah, but you probably don't know who Donahue is. But when Oprah started out, and then Donahue too, it was women, basically, it was daytime TV for women to see women stuff. So it was basically all these women going on TV just shitting all over men. Men are trash. Men don't do this. Men don't do that. And what happens is you had a whole generation of young people, especially young women, growing up listening to this trash. And you can see, because Oprah's a billionaire, that this has become a staple of our mainstream popular media. And I can go into this more, but like I said, this is just going to be a quick condensed rant here. But the 90s, we still had these strong masculine father figures. So, well, the 80s even, we had Bill Cosby, The Cosby Show, a couple shows. And even the 90s, we had Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince. He was the patriarch of the family. Yeah, Aunt Viv, she would run her mouth every now and then, but ultimately, Uncle Phil was a strong masculine type, And because the show was a black sitcom, they didn't have the same husband to wife dynamic that a white show would, so we got to put a asterisk there. But Uncle Phil still was the man, and he was a judge and a lawyer, and he was a strong type. So what happened? All of a sudden, in the late 90s and the 2000s, we started having the Al Bundys and the Homer Simpsons and all of the father figures and all the male figures were all bumbling morons. Was it King of Queens and all these shows where there's always some quote unquote lovable loser who's with some woman that was out of his league who settled for him. And that's basically what I would say 2 or 3 generations of young men have grown up seeing is all the guys that and are going to be are idiots and morons, and then all the women are awesome, and you would be lucky to get one. And that's kind of where we're at. But there was one lone voice, and you'll probably know from my Tom Leykis video that while they were snuffing out the Uncle Phil image, Tom Leykis was on the radio laying the foundation for Red Pill as we know it now, talking about don't get married, talking about don't date single mothers, talking about all this other things, and he would tout himself as being the father that most young men never had, and Tom's still around, so it would be interesting. I haven't seen any of his new interviews about what he thinks about the manosphere and all this other stuff, but it would be interesting to see what he thinks about Andrew Tate and Kevin Samuels and all of that, but he, from 94 to 2008, he was the guy he was the only male figure in media that was really saying things that were in the best interests of men. So that kind of brings us to today. And where we're at now is we are in the United States and our media is fervently anti-male. And anyone who argues this is just ridiculous. All of media now is just men are bad, men are trash, men are idiots, fathers don't matter, fathers don't want to see their kids, men are predators, men are all this horrible things. So what do boys do? They go on the internet and they find someone that's going to give them the answers they're looking for. Because what happens is a lot of young boys, they grow up listening to this whole I am naturally bad because I'm a boy. And then there's a little voice in the back of their mind that's saying something's not right. This doesn't sound right. I'm not bad because I'm a boy. Wait a minute. I've never done anything bad to any woman. I love my sister and my mom and all the other women in my life. Something's wrong here. And then what happens is that everyone's on social media now. So they might be on TikTok, they might be on Instagram, they might be on Snapchat, I don't know. And what happens is they hear a clip from Kevin Samuels or O'Shea Duke Jackson or Andrew Tate or Entrepreneurs with Cars or someone, and they're like, wait a minute. They stop, and that little voice in the back of their head starts saying, this makes sense. And then everything kind of falls into place. Andrew Tate, what he's saying isn't new. Tom Leykis has been saying this for years. There's people who have been in different magazines like Penthouse, where it was The Bachelor and all these stuff. These guys, this information isn't new. But what's happening is that these young boys, they're finding this stuff in these social media areas where they can consume it, and have access to it in a way that cannot be. It used to be back in the day, if a radio show made women mad, they can get it off the radio. If a show on TV had some image about women that people didn't like, they can get it voted off. But now, Andrew Tate, they tried to ban him, and his stuff's still all over my feed. His stuff's all over tons of my friends' TikToks and Instagrams and stuff. And now you can't cancel these people. You can't, because a lot of times they run their own media, or they have so many people reposting their own stuff. I mean, their stuff. So what can you do? Andrew Tate is indicative, and people, they're trying to ban him instead of actually addressing the problem that he's that's making people go to him in the first place. And that's the dumbest thing that you can do. So I just wanted to kind of rant for just a little bit. I hope you guys learned a little bit, but drop in the comments if you remember watching, shows from Oprah and Donahue with all these, manly looking chicks talking about trash about men, because I remember seeing that coming up when I would, have a sick day from school. I'd be flipping through channels, and all of a sudden it's all these women talking about men and thinking something was up then. And this is back when I was like 8, 9, 10 years old. So, all right, you guys, I just wanted to do a quick one. You guys stay safe, and I am out.